Is a tragedy written by William Shakespeare between 1599 and 1601. The story is set in Denmark and is considered one of the most powerful and influential works of literature. The tragedy depicts Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, who comes back from school in Germany to attend his father's funeral. He is shocked to find his mother already married with Hamlet's uncle, the Claudius. When his father's ghost visits the castle, reveals that he was killed, so he is unable to rest in peace. And so Prince Hamlet decided to promise that he will revenge his father's death, but because he is thoughtful by nature, he enters in a deep depression. After many circumstances, at the end of the tragedy, Hamlet achieves his revenge and then he dies.
Dear Ophelia, my necessaries are embarked. Farewell. And sister. For Hamlet and the trifling of his favour, hold it a fashion and a toy in blood, no more.
No more but so.
Think it no more. Perhaps he loves you now, but you must fear. His greatness weighed, his will is not his own. For he himself is subject to his birth. He may not, as unvalued persons do, carve for himself, for on his choice depends the safety and health of this whole state. Then weigh what loss your honour may sustain, if with too credent ear you list his songs.
Act 1, Scene 3 begins with Laertes, who is preparing for his return to school in Paris, and before leaving he goes to talk to Ophelia. During their dialogue, he insists that Ophelia should not accept the advance of Hamlet. He tells her that she could never be anything more than a toy to play with. And throughout his calm tone, he doesn't show a real consideration and concern for Ophelia's feeling. His quiet language emphasizes even more her feminine inferiority. Is that she should protect her honor and reject Hamlet to safeguard her dignity. And she responds with a silent and a scared look, which highlight her inability to express her thoughts.
Yet here, Laertes! Aboard, for shame! The wind sits in the shoulder of your sail and you are stayed full. There, my blessing with thee. These few precepts in thy memory look thou character. Give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any unproportioned thought his act. Be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar.
During Polonius' dialogue with Laertes, he hugs his son as a sign of respect, and during the entire conversation, Ophelia remains behind and is not included in the conversation, as she was not able to comprehend what they were saying.
What is it, Ophelia, he hath said to you?
So please you, something touching the Lord Hamlet.
Marry, well bethought.
When he speaks to Ophelia, Polonius treats his daughter as the audience would expect a man of his time would have treated a woman.
You believe his tenders, as you call them?
I do not know, my lord, what I should think.
I will teach you. Tender yourself more dearly.
The use of aggressive language, Polonius talks to her as she is his property and imposes her to bring honor and respect to her family. He underestimates her daughter, saying that Hamlet would never choose her as a wife, which shows lack of respect toward Ophelia. This emphasizes women's inferiority and makes her seem powerless. Both Laertes and Polonius tell her to not marry Hamlet because he would only play with her and then will discard her as an object. At the end of the conversation, Polonius, her father, she has no choice. She must stop her relationship with Hamlet and undergo her family's order.
Ophelia, walk you here. Gracious, so please you, we will bestow ourselves. Read on this book.
Act 3, Scene 1 opens with Polonius, the Queen, the King, and Ophelia. Polonius is taken to Ophelia, ordering her what to do when Hamlet comes. He directs her to read a book, so it seems like she's casually hanging out. It's clear that he doesn't want to give her the opportunity to make her own decisions, and instead he forbids her to continue a relationship with Hamlet. During this time period, it was very common for the authoritarian father to make the decision, often solely, as to who the daughter could or could not marry. He takes all the power away from Ophelia and doesn't seem to care about how she feels.
At home, my lord.
Let the doors be shut upon him, that he may play the fool nowhere but in his own house. If thou dost marry, I'll give thee this plague for thy dowry. Be thou as chaste as ice, as pure as snow. Thou shalt not escape calumny. Or if thou wilt needs marry, marry a fool. For wise men know well enough what monsters you make of them. I have heard of your paintings well enough. God hath given you one face, and you make yourselves another. You jig and amble, and you lisp. You nickname God's creatures, and make your wantonness your ignorance. Go to! I'll no more on't. It has made me mad. I say we will have no more marriage. Those that are married already, all but one shall live. The rest shall keep as they are.
After Ophelia rejects Hamlet, he becomes aggressive and agitated. His volume suddenly increases, and he begins yelling and cursing her father. He goes on to say, "If thou dost marry, a plague on this house," essentially threatening both she and her family. He begins circling around her like a predator would to their prey, and puts his face near hers while yelling at her. This shows a lack of respect for women and their ability to turn down a man. Ophelia doesn't say anything or react. She remains silent and at one point turns her back and holds a book close to her chest, almost to protect herself. Hamlet rudely grabs her face and squeezes her cheeks in order to stifle her reaction and prevent her from turning away from him. Shortly after, he throws her into a stone wall, which scares her. It signifies that the two are no longer connected. She looks visibly shaken and is almost crying. Hamlet ends the scene by throwing the necklace that he gave her. This is important because it shows a lack of maturity on his part, as well as a lack of respect for her as a woman.